Everything Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And I think we're bereft of news still.
Yeah, still nothing new.
Yeah, I've got no Nessies, I've got no Congress UFO hearings. Still seems a bizarre thing to ever say, but it happened.
And I don't really have any X-Files gossip from Twitter.
No, doesn't mean anything at the moment. No word on the reboot, but then with Hollywood being on strike, you'd think it'd be a while before we got anything like that anyway.
True. Of course, if you do have anything that you would like us to share on the show, if you've got any contests, conventions, X-Files fan things that you're doing, or even any kind of cool art projects or fan arts, do let me know on Twitter or Mastodon. I'm happy to share for you on this show.
Absolutely. But in the absence of any other kind of X-Files news, I suppose we'll have to get to our episodes for the week.
Hooray!
Okay, so first up we've got Tempest Fugit. Directed by Rob Bowman, written by Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz, and first broadcast on the 16th of March 1997. Guest stars! Just wow. Okay, so Joe Spano played Mark Miller.
Okay.
Who was the head of the crash investigation.
Okay,
Not sure they actually say his name on screen at all, but that's him. Okay, was in American Graffiti, George Lucas's film before Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Apollo 13. He was in Frost Nixon. And this is the best one. He voiced, in Chuck E. Cheese restaurants, Pasquale the chef.
Aww.
Also, there's Tom O'Brien, who played Sergeant Louis Frisch, who somehow wound up in Dark Skies, the X-Files knockoff.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Robert Maloney, who played Bruce Bearfield. I have no idea who he is. But he was in the Power Rangers film in 2017 and in The Outer Limits. Now, the one I thought was him but is Greg Michaels, who played Scott Garrett, who in my notes is the guy with the mustache.
Okay, yeah.
He was in Grimm. He was in Cthulhu, which is another version of Shadow of Innsmouth.
Okay.
Not one we've seen. He'll show up in Millennium. Like last week, he was also in Hot Shots Part 2. He was in Pumpkinhead.
Okay.
And he was in Logan's Run.
Well, I've seen some of those.
And last but not least, David Palfrey is the Dark Man. Can you guess who that was?
Actually, no.
He's the assassin on the plane at the start.
Okay, fair enough.
He was in House of the Dead.
Oh. Poor man.
And he'll show up in Lone Gunman and Millennium for future.
Okay. Obviously not as the same character.
Well, Lone Gunman certainly, Millennium I wouldn't like to guess. Actually no, the crossover is so minimal anyway. Okay, so Tempest Fugit. 4 years after his abduction, Max Fennick is travelling on Flight 549, which is flying over upstate New York. He is paranoid and watches another man on the plane who seems to be following him. This man heads to the plane's bathroom where he assembles a zip gun, a plastic gun to get through metal detectors. However, when he comes back, the aeroplane begins to shake and a bright light flashes outside, indicating the plane is encountering a UFO. The emergency door, which is beside Max, is opened. Elsewhere, Mulder and Scully are celebrating Scully's birthday in a restaurant. They are approached by a woman named Sharon Graffier, who claims to be Max's sister, and tells them that Max planned to deliver something to Mulder, but his flight to Washington has crashed. The agents head to the crash site in Northville, New York, and attend an NSTB meeting where Flight 549's final transmissions are played for them. Mulder quickly theorizes that the plane was forced down by aliens attempting to abduct Max. The NTSB team, led by Chief Investigator Mike Millar, dismisses his claims. When Mulder and Scully survey the crash site, they realise there is a 9-minute disparity between the crash and the time on the victim's wristwatches, indicating missing time. Mulder believes that Max was abducted from the plane and that his body will not be found. Meanwhile, Scott Garrett, a man in black, poses as an STB investigator and steals the zip gun from the assassin's body, erases his face and fingerprints with acid. Larold Rayburn, a passenger who sat next to Max, is found alive. His injuries indicate exposure to radiation. Upon confrontation by Scully, Sharon denies that Max brought a radioactive substance aboard the plane, but gives up details about his undergone life. Scully subsequently relays to Mulder that Max worked at a nuclear weapons assembly facility in Colorado under an alias, and she believes he may have caused the crash after bringing plutonium on board. Mulder, however, believes that Max was taken off the plane by a UFO, and that Rayburn's injuries were caused by exposure to the craft. Scully informs Mulder that Max's body has now been found and pulled from the crash site. Meanwhile, Sharon is abducted from her hotel room by aliens. After identifying Max's body, Mulder finds that the wristwatches have been stolen from all the other victims. He refutes the official explanation of malfunction as the cause of the crash, and is doubtful the true cause will be found unless they discern what happened during the 9 minutes of missing time. The agents visit Sergeant Louis Frisch, an air traffic controller from the US Air Force who was on duty during the crash. Frisch denies anything unusual happened, but after the agents leave, Frisch and a colleague argue over whether to reveal the truth about Flight 549's demise. After finding Sharon's trashed hotel room, Miller approaches Mulder and informs him that the emergency door was pulled from the plane during the flight. Later, Fish returns to the control tower and finds his colleague dead from a fake suicide, and flees a group of commandos who arrive to capture him. Frisch goes to see Mulder and Scully, telling them that he lied previously and that his commanding officer had ordered him to track the plane's coordinates as it was being intercepted by a second craft. Seconds later, there was an explosion and the plane disappeared from his radar. Mulder believes that a third aircraft, a UFO, approached the plane and was destroyed by the second aircraft, which caused Flight 549 to crash. The agents leave with Frisch and are soon chased by commandos, but they manage to lose them by driving under a landing plane. Miller, meanwhile, returns to the crash site and sees a UFO. Shortly after it leaves, he finds Sharon nearby, having been returned by her abductors. Scully returns to Washington with Frisch, while Mulder heads to Great Sacandaga Lake, which he believes is the logical place for a crashed UFO to have landed. Scully brings Frisch to a local bar where they run into fellow FBI agent Pendrell. Garrett soon enters the bar seeking to kill Frisch and accidentally shoots Pendrell while Scully shoots him back. Meanwhile, Mulder arrives at the lake and dives down to find the sunken craft and an alien body. Before he can return to the surface, a bright light shines down from above the water. So, when Fallen Angel was broadcast, we were left with a lot of questions about Max. And while we've conjectured a lot of stuff because we've made weird connections to the black oil and other things, and we've never seen an invisible alien since. But radiation is the thing that keeps coming back with aliens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Especially radiation burns. The black oil can do it. The one in Fallen Angel could do it. There's definitely some other radiation stuff.
Conduit?
Conduit. Was there radiation in Conduit? Or was it just burns?
Oh, was it just burns?
Might have been burns. But anyway, so Max was one of, like a lot of X-Files things, is a lot of the episodes leave with the dangling hint that we could do a sequel to it later.
Yeah.
So far, we've only done it for Tooms. And now we've got it for Max. So, Max Fennick is back. That's kind of cool. He's dead before the credits have played.
I've got to admit, I looked into this and I feel a bit sad for Max's actor.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's apparently he's always been super keen to play another role in the X-Files, but he was always turned down because Max was an absolute fan favourite character when it came out, and they thought he was just too recognisable to bring back in another bit. So apparently he saw David Duchovny at the gym, and David Duchovny piqued his interest, kind of saying, oh yeah, actually there are some plans in the works to do a two-parter about Max. But it was Frank Spotnitz who thought that the fans would find it cheap if the Max character was milked due to his popularity. So he thought, we'll go the other way, we'll do the shocking thing. Max will die in the first 5 minutes of the episode.
And I've got to say, why bother bringing him back in? This could have been any other UFO abductee, really.
Well, as far as I'm aware, and there is another character in the follow-up episode, Max, that we'll talk about in a bit, that they do the same thing of. But the idea is that if you kill a fan favourite character, it adds tension because fans think, all right, anyone can be for the chop. Yeah,
though I think... I must admit, I've never had that impression. It's if you kill a core cast member, then yeah. I mean, the example I always go for is Serenity, the Firefly film.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you think everyone's fine until they kill Wash.
Yes.
And then for the rest of the film, I was really unsure who was going to come out of that alive. First time I watched it.
Yeah, true.
Because you really do think because they all look like they're going to die at various points.
Well, higher brow is the psycho effect, is you follow a character for the first half an hour, 40 minutes of the film, you think she's the main character, and then she turns out to be the opening kill.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's a really strange thing for Max of, you can kill your guest stars off at any point and we won't be that shocked. I mean, the ultimate one is, do you remember Police Squad?
Yeah.
Their special guest stars did not make it through the opening credits either, but that was the entire joke.
Yeah. I think for this to work in the X-Files, we'd have to think of someone... It wouldn't be Mulder or Scully, you could be going someone like Skinner.
Yeah, I'd say if anyone from Skinner, Cigarette Smoking Man, you could pretend that possibly do it. First Elder, and Well Manicured Man.
No, it doesn't have the same feel if it's a villain. It's got to be a main character. So you're thinking Skinner, you're thinking Margaret Scully, you know, that sort of character.
And not Melissa Scully, who we didn't know well enough for it to be shocking.
No, you've got to get to know them first.
Or Bill Mulder, or Bill Scully. None of them are actually
At this
shocks.
stage, you could probably get away with it being Margaret or Tina Mulder or Skinner.
Yeah.
Because we've seen them several times and we feel a bit towards them.
And we can make the point there that for Talitha Kumi, it was plausible they would kill Tina in that episode.
Yeah, absolutely.
We could have believed that. But to do this to Max, it just feels like a waste of bringing the actor back at all. I know he's got some more scenes to come. But, yeah. Otherwise, though, as an actual episode, and it's a weird conspiracy episode as well, I think, because it's not really wide into the conspiracy in the same way.
No. Well, you've got no Cancer Man or Syndicate or anything like that, really.
I do wonder if William B. Davis was on holiday this week and he couldn't get him in because...
Well, it feels based on previous episodes we've seen that this is absolutely the Cancer Man sort of area.
Yeah, and his absence is weird, and Bill Garrett is clearly meant to be a stand-in, but then he's more involved than Cancer Man would get. At the same time, it's weird that Cancer Man isn't here, basically.
I think he's more another one of these bit assassins that don't last out the conspiracy, like the red-headed man and things like that.
That's true. I think we talked about it a little bit, but it's one to get into is, what is the deal with aliens and radiation? Because they've studied humans for a long time, we're meant to believe, and haven't figured out that exposure to radiation is a bad thing.
It could just be a natural byproduct. These aliens, we've seen previously, are not kind of carbon-based necessarily. This could just be a natural thing they exude that doesn't harm them.
True. Well, I think there's certainly a case for biologically they do it. So, I mean, Fallen Angel and the Black Oil have both exhibited radioactive properties. But their craft definitely is radioactive as well, isn't it?
Mm.
It feels like...
Well, radioactive fuel sources are a common thing in science fiction.
Oh, I know, but generally they're sealed up, aren't they? You don't normally just irradiate things around you while you fly past.
But again, if you're of a race that not only exudes radiation, isn't affected by it, what does it matter?
Well, true. I still like, I suppose the aliens are meant to be kind of cruel and everything, but do you not think that when they sit down with the bounty hunter at various points, they say, by the way, could you put some lead shielding in there because you're frying a lot of people doing this? Please stop it.
Again, would you care about the cockroaches?
Well, but then the corollary to that, though, is that it's meant to be you can't communicate with the cockroaches, which is why you don't care. The aliens totally can communicate with us. They just don't care. But to get to the good points of the episode is the direction from the plane is really cool. I mean, that's not something I think I've seen in any other medium, mid-flight abduction like that.
Mm.
It does make trying to resist aliens feel futile, because if you have the capability to stall, not actually stall a aircraft, but at least keep it flying in the same direction at the same speed, but then be able to pull open the door from the outside, and no depressurization, everything's fine, and levitate someone out. That's a level of technology and power that outstrips anything humans have.
Yeah.
That's incredible. It's one of the X-Files weird inconsistencies where, how do you manage to foil some of these other instances if they can do that to you? What are the military doing with guns if they can do this? Because they switch off that guy's gun when he tries to shoot Max at the start.
We've seen them do that before as well.
Exactly. It's just an incredible level of power. It just it's presumably why they have to be unconscious for you to shoot them in the head.
Mm.
So yeah, I like that framing, and I like the conspiracy just erasing the assassin's fingerprints and things.
Yeah,
and things like the stopped watches. That's a kind of a cool detail. Do have to have words with timing, because hey, it's Scully's birthday for some reason, and she and Mulder have had a surprise birthday meal.
Yeah.
And now he's dragging her to a crash site.
I pity Scully so much in this episode, because you get the really uncomfortable situation where Mulder voices in front of a room full of people that he thinks that aliens did it.
Yeah. Or from one line of something on an intercept and not knowing what it is. And there's like a million explanations for that, because as we mentioned last week, UAPs are a recorded thing, and while NASA doesn't believe there's any kind of alien intent behind them, unidentified aerial phenomenon includes some weird stuff, so you have no idea what those pilots saw out the window. Mulder just jumped to its UFO. He happens to be right, annoyingly, but
I think it's also for that we know Mulder can't read a room from every time he's been in court so far in the series.
He should be able to. This is meant to be his thing.
But think of the scope here is, I think they say it's something like 135 people have potentially died in this crash.
Yeah.
They're not expecting there to be any survivors. It's quite a somber affair. It's one of these things that these people are going to have to clean up and find these various parts of bodies and stuff like that. And Mulder waltzes straight in there and starts thinking, yeah, aliens did it, woo! It's read the room.
Yeah. Well, they actually mention it's even worse because it's crashed in the middle of the night, and due to the location and the temperature and the darkness, they are slow at putting anything together. So potentially there were more survivors who didn't actually survive the night.
Yeah.
I mean, it's remarkable they find the guy who sat next to Max.
Well, it sounds like, from how the way they describe it, that it completely nosedived at about 300 miles per hour. So you think that this thing should just be absolutely pancaked, obliterated on that?
Yes, I mean, that Mulder does actually make that comment when they see the crash site of where's the plane. It's a case of you don't normally get crashes like this. So I don't actually understand how that guy survived.
Actually, technically speaking, that is what a plane crash tends to look like.
Okay.
On board for this one, because they want it to seem authentic, they got the National Transportation Safety Board officials to come to the site and actually help them design this.
Oh, wow.
So it looked and functioned like a true thing. They said at the time that actually seeing it like that really did upset a lot of crew members because they didn't expect it to look like that.
Okay.
And apparently for the authenticity, the official on set said, other than the smell, it was absolutely spot on. This was an accurate portrayal.
And smell doesn't matter so much in a visual medium like that.
So yeah, in an accident of this kind, that's the level of devastation you would see.
Oh, okay. Wow. Did not expect that.
But yeah, other than, I think, a bit of the tail that's kind of recognisable, it doesn't look like a plane at all.
No. It's very weird then that they've got that attention to detail there. And there's all the other bits where they just kind of seem to fling their hands up and say, yeah. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing that basically, yeah, we start mentally cringing as soon as Mulder walks into the room full of officials and starts with his theory, because, as you said, he can never read the room and he always does this. But then it wouldn't really be the X-Files if he didn't do that. But at the same time, this is not the time.
I was kind of hoping Scully was just going to turn around and walk back out, get back to her birthday meal.
She really should do. I suppose we could detour a little bit for Sculder shippers. This is an interesting one. Given they're not going out for Scully's birthday, because until I don't know if it's whatever they bring out with the sparklers, she doesn't know it's for her birthday.
Like some kind of chocolate bomb thing.
Yeah, but she thinks that Mulder's forgotten. So they're not there because of her birthday. They've gone out for a meal together.
Well, you know that they do eat meals together, though. They've mentioned that in the past about going out to get lunch together and things.
Yeah, but the evening meals are kind of more datey, aren't they?
Well, it depends where you're working, though. I presume FBI agents don't work 9-to-5 jobs.
No, I suppose not. But I mean, it's one of these whole Sculder shippers hang on to this one. This is kind of a good indication that they actually like spending time together. We don't understand why Scully likes spending time with Mulder, but she does for some reason. He's
also bought her that weird-ass birthday present.
Yeah, and we know he'll explain that next episode. But I really thought there would be more significance than that.
The Apollo 11 keychain.
Yeah. I suppose one thing we could get into, and it's extremely difficult to say. Well, it's hard to view it any other way than the obvious way, but you could make an argument. I don't know how you want to do this in terms of how the government and aliens are intertwined at this point.
Yeah.
Given the UFO that we don't see in this episode, do we? Oh no, we did see it. We see it at the end, don't we?
Right at the end.
Yeah. The UFO we see in this episode is a pretty close match to the one in Deep Throat.
Yeah.
It looks really small. Is one thing that surprised me.
Again, if it's like the one in Deep Throat, it's not necessarily an UFO. It could be one of these sort of military aircrafts that they based on UFO technology.
Yeah, and this is where the dividing line gets very wobbly. Because it looks very much like the one in Deep Throat, which at least was implied or suggested to be based on the Roswell craft that they repurposed the technology of. Fair enough. Where you get a bit weird is if that's a government UFO, then why did they take Sharon? And we know there's a crashed UFO in the lake because we see it at the end.
Yeah.
We see an alien body inside, or what looks like an alien body. I don't think there's no real debate on that. That's an alien down there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mulder has finally seen a dead alien. Doesn't get to take any pictures or anything. I mean, but okay, so that's definitely a crashed UFO down there. And given that Sharon seemed to be returned by the mini UFO, that implies it was the same force that took her from the motel room when she was abducted. Now, it'd be easy to ascribe all that to aliens because whoever took Max has to be alien unless we get into a situation where the syndicate are operating so secretly that the US government don't know they're doing it. Because there is a case to be made in this episode that it's actually the Air Force or something is doing all this as some kind of weird stunt, because the suggestion that Max took something he shouldn't have done. He's got hold of something they want back. And we automatically assume it's aliens, but there's a possibility it's actually the US government, but then you've got two government teams basically working at cross purposes. So that doesn't feel right. So we basically have to assume these are aliens who abducted Sharon from a motel room in a scene that looked really strange.
I know you don't like that scene.
I don't know if I don't like it. It's just how the aliens operate sometimes. It's a case of sometimes they're so sort of precise with these abduction things, and other times they're so messy and just everyone notices what they're doing. Abduction from a motel room feels a bit more of a precision operation they normally go in for.
I personally don't mind this episode. I have more problems with Max when we get to it shortly.
Yeah, that's me too.
But the thing that I think is its biggest misstep is the cold open.
Yeah.
Is that we have a lot of things in this episode that would have been intriguing. My primary thing is when, I can't remember, was it Michael Miller?
Mike Miller, yeah.
Mike Miller. When he comes with the evidence that he's kind of compiled from the actual plane, when he talks about the fact it was a brand new plane, but it's showing fatigue cracks like it was an old plane. They have the evidence that the door was kind of opened outwards, which would have been impossible when the flight was in there. If you hadn't seen it happen at the start, you would have had more of a building mystery of, okay, what caused this damage to the plane?
Yeah, well, and also, as he says, he doesn't believe what Mulder's saying, but he doesn't have a good explanation for what happened other than what Mulder's providing. Mulder is saying really absurd things, but the evidence he's got is also absurd. That makes no sense.
Yeah, it's kind of, Mulder's suggestion is appearing to be Occam's razor, but he does not want to accept this because it's such an outlandish theory.
Yes. I like the fact that he's very much like Skinner. It's a case of, this is something he can't explain. He has a hard edge he will not go past. He will go, I cannot explain this. I'm not taking the next step to what you're saying is the cause, because that's too much. Although this is the man who's actually watched a UFO in transit that seemed to have dumped a Sharon basically into the middle of a swamp, and still doesn't believe. But I don't blame him too much because it's kind of weird.
You also have some odd shadiness with the military operatives, the two that are responsible for the crash, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, try as I might, none of the explanations quite ring true of what they did. Given that they say we were giving the coordinates of Flight 549 at 15-second intervals, we tracked a second craft that shadowed it for 50 minutes or something, and then there was an explosion. And we know, well, they have to. Next episode is actually the explanation for what happened there, because they certainly aren't very clear on it. But it's what Fish and the other person thought they were doing when they were given these coordinates. At no point did you think, this is a bit weird, this is a civilian aircraft we're tracking. Also, and they never quite deal with, that's his voice on the tape. Because they make a big thing of, I've heard that voice before.
He's the air traffic controller. Yeah.
And they never get into, sorry, why were you talking to the plane if you were just giving coordinates to someone else? What were you told? What did you think was going on?
My other problem is the way that the government operatives try to deal with the problem, because for some reason they murder the shakier guy, the one that looks like he's going to fold.
Yeah.
Then completely leave the area.
Yep.
Wait for Fish to come back and find the guy's body, and then suddenly kind of screech around the corner in their sedans to come back and get him. is would it have hurt one of these assassins just to sit in a cupboard for a bit, just to wait to kind of finish them both off?
Well, absolutely. His legs cramps up a lot. He can't crouch down for that long. It's not very comfortable.
These are literally the worst assassins in the world.
Yes. Well, also we've got, I mean, in conjunction with that, they give chase to Mulder and Scully and Fisher later on in a slightly dodgy action scene where Mulder endangers another flight by driving under it as it's coming into land.
That's a great sequence.
It's a great action sequence because of, what are you doing, man? How have airport security not leapt on you straight afterwards? How have you got away with this? I'm pretty sure they don't let you drive on the runway for this exact reason. I mean, it feels really odd to say this, but the usual cinematic logic in working out where the UFO might have come down.
Mm.
I mean, Mulder has actually done a lot of extrapolation and a lot of conjecture to say, could it have wound up in this lake?
Yeah.
And the guy says, that makes sense. Doesn't say it's right, just say it makes sense. And Mulder is, of course, proved exactly right. But I've never been scuba diving, and you have.
Yes.
But when Mulder co-opts a guy to take him out into the middle of a lake in the middle of the night to go scuba diving on his own, which is, I know, a huge number of red flags of things you don't do in scuba diving ever, because the risk to your safety is astonishing. And then he just reveals he has no experience.
Okay, I'm going my basis. I've only scuba dived in open water once. And that was in the ocean, not a lake. First of all, as you say, you always have a buddy. Usually you are not trusted to kind of solo dive unless you've had something ridiculous like 200 dives worth of experience. It takes a lot because if anything goes wrong, you're dead. Secondly, I'm going to go with depth and darkness, is that when I went scuba diving in open water, I was scuba diving at 40 feet. It was mid-afternoon on a very, very sunny summer's day. And I'd say the visibility down there was maybe like early evening. You could see fine, but it was murky, it was dark. And that's at 40 feet in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
He's going in the dead of the night, in which it would be absolute pitch blackness down there.
To 60 feet as well. So
to 60 feet as well, 20 foot lower than I went. And he has no idea what's down there.
Yep.
So you don't know how much debris there is or anything else he could catch himself on. And then, we don't really see it till the end of this episode, but he pops straight up like a corpse, so he's also got the bends on the basis of that. Is when you dive, the risk of the bends is incredibly serious. You have to come up in increments very slowly, because it's all to do with nitrogen balancing in the blood, is that the bends can really badly... It basically causes bubbles to form. So you can get, very serious blood and joint problems, and it can potentially be fatal if you don't kind of decompress and come up in these slow implements to allow these kind of bubbles to disperse and your kind of body to essentially depressurize as you go up. So yeah, I am surprised Mulder survived this entire stupid idea, or that the guy let him do it. I'm sure you can't just flash your FBI badge and get away with anything.
Yeah. Plus that guy just disappeared.
That's the start of the next episode, but yeah, he's totally not on the surface by the time the bad guy boats combust.
Yeah. But I mean, so yeah, Mulder's seen what looks a lot like a dead alien body. He's seen a lot of very strange wreckage down at the bottom of the lake, which we're assuming is the crashed UFO. So I suppose in his eyes, he won on that one. However, we'll ignore Mulder's forensic safety issues to focus on some really weird stuff that happens with Scully.
Mm.
So Scully has a guy in protective custody who's going to give evidence that he caused the crash of the plane, essentially, or helped facilitate it. I think the Mark Miller sort of points out that basically they can't prove anything, which is an interesting point to make here when that's been the case of so many other testimonials that they've lent in the past, or that Mulder's decided to try and use, of you've got this guy saying something and he has no proof.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hilarious they're still going to try and do this. But Scully lets him call his girlfriend and we don't hear that conversation. And we like to assume he's on the level given that they try to kill him, but we don't know who Fish talked to or what he told anyone.
He's also unstable and he's kind of seems very, very depressed by the fact that he feels he's culpable for 135 deaths. So that could have been him turning himself into the military or anything like that.
Yeah, it's really terrible judgment. It's because you should sort of say, not yet. We'll wait till you're in secure custody, then you can contact her. But it's what happens next. And it feels like, and I remember this was a big thing in reviews at the time of, Scully, what are you doing? How did this happen? How did anyone think this was a good idea except for writing purposes?
To pub.
You've taken someone you're going to give to a US Marshal who's needs to be protective care, who people want to kill, and in fact someone tries to kill him while you're in this bar. You've taken him to the same bar you were at the start of the episode with.
Not to mention, that leads into a certain incident involving another fan favourite character.
Poor Agent Pendrell, he just wanted to buy Scully a drink and he's been shot.
I found when I was researching this on the internet as well that people refer to him as Good Guy Pendrell, because not only does drunken Pendrell want to buy Scully a drink for her birthday and everything else, but he sees that she's on a date and also offers to buy her date a drink.
Yes, he's not taking it personally. He's going to I didn't know Scully was into military men, but sure, I'll buy him a drink as well. We like you, Pendrell. It's very tragic you've been shot.
He doesn't even get her name.
No, he doesn't. Still Agent Pendrell.
Yeah.
Scully, why have you done this? Why didn't the US Marshal come to your apartment? I don't get it. Other than we need to have a dramatic scene to end the episode on, or a dramatic scene for Scully while Mulder gets the UFO.
Hey, I'm going to go on the basis of we should just shove him on Skinner's balcony. It worked really well in the past.
Well, to be fair, they people found Krychek there pretty fast as well. Nowhere seems to be safe.
Muskier than the pub.
It's true. I mean, less people wandering around. I mean, at least Krychek was there overnight, so yeah, he lasted longer. I'm realizing now that despite the episode seeming quite intense, there's not much to it, is there?
No, that's part of my problem with this as a two-parter, and it's a problem I brought up for most of the two-parters.
Yeah.
Is it should be a one-parter.
Yeah, I think it's drawn out, and I think, like you said, showing the abduction at the start, despite being an excellent hook, really undermines the tension of what you're trying to do afterwards. When it's one of these things where not depicting the event would be better, because then you can sort of imply and leave a lot more up to audience interpretation of exactly what the events were. And you're going to have Mulder's take on it, and you're going to have Scully's take on it. So, do you have anything else, or should we get on to Max?
No, I don't have much. I must admit, I did a terrible job of even figuring out people's names in this. I don't know if they just weren't mentioned a lot of the time. I mean, I was referring to that killer with the mustache as Tom Selleck in my notes for the entire thing.
I just called him mustache. I'm pretty sure he's never named on screen. And I'm pretty sure the coordinator of the rescue group isn't named either.
To be fair, a lot of the X-Files assassins don't have names. They're called by monikers. But this guy, according to the credits, actually does have a name, so it seems a bit more surreal. The ones with monikers, I usually assumed it's just because we never find out their names.
Yeah.
Like Hispanic man, red-headed man, grey-haired man, all the ones we've had like that previously. Crew-cut man.
Crew-cut man.
Yeah, they're all normally described by their hair, so he would have been mustache man, I guess, on that basis.
Well, I just had him down as mustache in my notes the entire time. Okay, so shuffling on to part 2, which is Max. It was directed by Kim Manners, written again by Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz, and first broadcast on the 23rd of March 1997. There are barely any changes in the guest cast between episodes.
Okay.
They're basically all the same, although Skinner's in this part and wasn't in part 1, but I think that's largely the only difference. So would you like to give us a synopsis for Max?
After finding the alien on the bottom of the lake, Mulder is caught by a group of commandos as he swims to shore. Meanwhile, in Washington, Scully fails to capture Scott Garrick, the man in black who she shot in the leg, and tends to the critically wounded Pendrell, who shortly afterwards dies off screen. As Pendrell is taken away by the EMTs, Skinner arrives. He tells Scully that the federal marshal was never going to arrive, that the orders to protect Frisch have been countermanded by the military, and he's going to be arrested by military police for providing false testimony. He also expresses to her that Mulder has also been captured by the military police. Scully heads to where Mulder is being detained and arranges for his release from confinement. She tells him the supposed official explanation from the crash. This is that Frisch and Gonzalez have caused it by mistakenly vectoring a military flight craft with the plane. Everything that Frisch had told them was supposedly a lie to cover this up. Mulder is incredibly skeptical of this explanation and thinks that the crashed UFO he found underwater is really what caused the crash. Scully also tells Mulder that Sharon has been lying to them. She's not really Max's sister, but instead she's an unemployed aeronautical engineer. She met Max in a mental institution and suffers from schizophrenia. She also reveals to him about Pendrell's death. Mulder and Scully visit Max's trailer and watch a tape of him where he discovers about finding proof of alien existence. The military recover the crashed UFO from the lake, which includes the alien body. Mulder and Scully also visit Millar. He says that his investigation has been unable to prove or disprove the military's cover story. Mulder explains to Millar what he really believed happens. Mulder's feeling is that Max boarded the plane with proof of alien life, and that a UFO did stop the plane and abduct him. A military aircraft then intercepted the two with orders to attack the UFO. While Max was being returned, the military aircraft struck, causing both the UFO and the plane to crash. Mulder visits Max's trailer once again and looks through his mail and finds a luggage claim ticket. Meanwhile, Scully visits Sharon in a mental institution. She tells Scully that she stole technology from her employer and that Max believed it to be alien. The device was something that had 3 parts, one of which she had, one that was brought onto the plane, and a third one. Scully also notices that Sharon seems to have radiation burns on her face, which infers to her that the device is actually radioactive. Mulder uses the claim ticket to obtain a third device from New York Airport. He also runs it through the airport X-ray machine, which shows a kind of weird gourd-shaped object inside the bag. He then heads on a return plane to Washington carrying the device. Garrett has also gotten aboard the plane and sits beside him. As Mulder realises who Garrett is, he holds him at gunpoint. However, Garrett doesn't care. He tells Mulder that if he shoots within the plane, it stands the risk of depressurising the cabin, and he will be able to escape with a parachute he has on himself. Mulder then imprisons Garrett in the airplane bathroom, but Garrett quickly breaks out with another zip gun. He orders Mulder to hand over the device, holding the plane hostage. However, at this point the plane starts shaking and bright lights shine through the windows. As the plane touches down in the airport and Mulder gets out, both Garrett and the device are gone, taken by the aliens, supposedly, and Mulder is missing 9 minutes of time with no memory of what happens. The agents visit Sharon one last time in Max's trailer to say goodbye to her and leave her as the custodian of all Max's belongings.
Thank you. I know it's meant to be sweet, the whole leaving Sharon as the custodian of the roving Max library or experience or whatever it is. Probably should check if she wants to do that or she wants all his junk, because he's got an awful lot of it.
I presume she would, because she's on the level with him. She clearly cares about him a lot.
It's true, and she filmed his tapes. I mean, to start with Max himself, given we get a little bit more of here, there's a key difference in this episode from Fallen Angel, which is Max is now claiming to be an abductee, something he did not believe about himself back in Fallen Angel.
I'm not sure it's not that he didn't believe it, is he wasn't aware of it.
Yeah, he had no idea it was happening. And apparently he now does, which also indicates something has changed in the last 4 years, which we don't get to hear about. I mean, we've got no idea what the aftermath of Fallen Angel was. I have this sneaking suspicion that Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz didn't go back and watch Fallen Angel either and just said, oh yeah, Max, he was an abductee last time, let's do something about him. And much like how Morgan and Wong didn't watch Conduit before they wrote Little Green Men, I don't think they watched Fallen Angel before they wrote Tempest, Future and Max. Because, yeah, it's quite different for Max, because he was just a UFO buff before.
It entertains me no end, and I know there's reasoning behind it. The fact that Max apparently has an extensive wardrobe of NICAP caps, because they find one in his backpack in this episode, and Mulder took his old one at the end of Fallen Angel.
Ah, that's true. Good catch.
So evidently he came back from that abduction and thought immediately, oh hell, Mulder's stolen my cap, better go and get another one.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of don't want the aftermath, but it's a case of, so where did Max wind up? Because the way the Full Angel is staged, it seems like Max isn't coming back from that. They're taking him and he's gone. But, because he apparently did come back and picked up his trailer again, because that's the same trailer.
I'm surprised Mulder wasn't aware of this as well, given that Mulder's a member of, like, NICAP and these various sort of MUFON kind of groups.
And Max has had his business card this entire time and has never thought to call him or say, oh, by the way, Mulder, I'm on the way to see you or something.
despite the fact he apparently holds Mulder in such high regard, which is true, he did hold him in high regard in Fallen Angel.
Yes. The other detail I find quite funny about Mulder's visit to Max's trailer is when he first visits it in Tempest Future, I think, or if it was in, I can't remember when he went to the trailer for the first time. He starts playing the tape in the stereo, and it starts playing a pop song that starts mentioning black helicopters.
Yeah, Unmarked Helicopters is the song.
It's the fact that it's playing when he comes to the trailer later after it's been raided. And apparently the agents have raided the trailer, started playing the tape, and just left it there. And I can't believe this for this government hit squad of, they didn't go for Max's mail, which is one of those things you do. I mean, it's like a cliche, it's been a cliche for years, but it's things like Indiana Jones is a big thing about the Grail Diary being mailed to Indiana Jones, so it's not in his possession at the time he's captured.
Yeah.
Is people's mail is one of those things that, yeah, you really want to know what they've been sent recently. And as you noticed as well, Mulder doesn't open the really intriguing looking padded envelope at the back of the pile. He opens the tiny thin white envelope at the front.
Yeah.
That just happens to have the luggage tag in it.
I'd have gone for that padded envelope so fast.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing that gets me about it is that we normally have keys. Like, there was the key in Lazarus. There was the key in Apocrypha that the Lunggunman helped recover.
To be fair, this is a different kind of thing. This is just a baggage exchange at an airport.
I know.
It's not a key locker like in those ones.
I know, but it's kind of odd it's not just a key locker, and that no one has thought, this bag over here is emitting radiation.
It's lucky it hasn't irradiated anyone else in the area.
Yeah, well, it's also very weird. It's when Scully's saying, oh, don't take it out of a container. Scully, it's a fabric bag. I'm pretty sure there's a container inside the bag.
It doesn't look heavy as well. You'd expect something like that to be in like a lead-lined container, which would weigh a ton.
Yeah, and imagine it must be given that it doesn't seem to be exuding radiation at the time, although whatever Max and Sharon were carrying around does. Though, I would also point out that when Scully's saying Sharon has radiation burns, therefore she's been handling the thing, you'd think Scully would say, but she didn't have them when we met her in the bar. Also, there's that point where she was abducted by aliens, and the aliens aren't good with radiation, so maybe that's where the burns came from.
True.
But anyway, I do feel this episode more than the last episode, has decided to hedge its bets with what the object was. With the whole, we've split it into 3 parts. Okay, we don't know what it is at the best of times, but you've split it into 3.
It's heavily inferred it's a fuel cell.
Yeah, and it's also, we've split it into 3. That's fine, but Max has 2 of them and you have 1. And you've managed to get to Mulder and Scully still holding this thing and don't hand it over, whereas Max got on a plane to fly over here and left one of them in New York. Wasn't that where he was flying to? Was he flying to New York?
No, he was flying to meet Mulder. He was flying to Washington.
So he left it behind in New York and took the last piece which the aliens went for with him. What was going on there? And it's like, Max, America isn't good for trains, I know, but you have Greyhound buses.
True.
It's probably not hard of things to do that kind of stunt, but it's less dramatic. But given how nervous he was doing this, and the fact he sort of apparently had some precognition this was going to happen, it's kind of odd for him to do it.
I think if I was picking the safest way to travel in his position, I'd go by plane as well, though.
Well,
because, you think that once you're in the air, there is limited things these people can do to you.
True. But we've got 2 assassins on the plane, and we should try to get into what is with the assassin timing. They've let the flight take off mid-flight. They're somewhere outside wherever New York airport they left. The assassin gets up, goes and assembles his zip gun, and then tries to assassinate Max in the middle of a crowded plane in the middle of the flight.
You think that the obvious place would be kind of a bit like Talitha Kumi getting him alone in a bathroom before he got on, or something like that.
Yeah, boarding, departing, something like that, not mid-flight. I mean, Garrett at the end does provide us with a possible explanation of what they were going to do, which makes the government just as callous as you'd think for saying shoot down that UFO, although then we get into a muddy bit, don't we? So the government, or whatever group, has put this assassin on board to kill Max. Presumably to get the engine part back.
Yeah.
And instructed him to kill Max mid-flight. At the same time, they apparently know the aliens that come in, so they then send a fighter jet to shoot down the UFO while they're abducting Max. What is going on?
I think it's just a critical error, to be honest. We know that the governments have this policy that if a UFO enters US airspace or anyone else that's involved in this conspiracy, it has to be shot down because that's the plot of Fallen Angel.
Yeah.
We thought that we could snipe this when it was kind of distracted next to the aeroplane, but it infers that there was it's all to do with the thing that Mulder doesn't like being called a tractor beam, is that it's caused some sort of slingshot effect. So essentially, the US government have shot the UFO, and the UFO's kind of tractor beam has kind of catapulted this plane, essentially, which is why it's taken the 300-mile-an-hour nosedive.
Yeah.
So this is the US government, I imagine, doing their usual thing where they use a sledgehammer where a scalpel is needed.
Yeah. But the crazy thing is that they're using a sledgehammer, but the scalpel's on board. So, what are you doing, guys?
Again, you said before, though, that these seem like two different agencies.
What?
I think you've got the US military proper, and you've got possibly the Syndicate or some other shadow cabal that are coming after him on the plane.
I was like, if I'm being charitable, I'd say, yes, this is the left hand and the right hand not knowing what they're doing.
What might be entirely connected is the Syndicate isn't really connected to the military that tightly. It's got their kind of little cells within the military, but if this is the military acting on the whole...
Yeah. But Garrett, I think, it does provide an explanation of what they were gonna do. Because I think the best way you can make it is that the assassin at the start was going to kill everyone on board. Because he was going to shoot Max, take the engine part, open the emergency door, take the parachute that Garrett has at the end, and leap out.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can make sense of what he was planning to do and why he decided to try and kill him mid-flight.
Yeah.
It's still stupid. Because that's what Garrett's plan ultimately is. And where we get into a bit of complications, I feel at least, is... So, we have to assume these are genuine aliens we're dealing with. That this isn't the government doing some bizarre, elaborate cover-up, because if all goes to plan, no one remembers it happened.
Yeah.
So, that's supposed to be the government because of Deep Throat, but for it to make sense, it has to be the aliens who want their thing back. And that's fine. The problem I get into is, why didn't they go and steal it from where it was if they want it back that badly?
True, yeah.
Because it must be a lot harder to sort of wait till everyone's gone home in the middle of the night, fly in the UFO and just teleport out, or whatever they do with it.
I'm assuming that the security on wherever this was held, because they did say it was a military site, is better than the security we previously saw at the Pentagon, at least. The fact that the aliens had a decent shot at getting it, now it's somewhere unsecure. Whereas, if it was kept in a lead-lined vault 30 floors beneath the earth or something like that, they couldn't get at it.
Well, okay, that's true. I mean, my thought would just be, this is a group of a species that can stop time. I don't understand how they couldn't do this. I mean, the other thing, and it's never been clear when they mentioned time stops before, is I think this is the first time it's been clear it's incredibly localized and things are still moving during that time stop phase.
Yeah.
It's not actually clear what stopping time genuinely means anymore. Because in every other instance, it's basically people have been conked out and they've just woken up afterwards. Mm. In this one, we've got the watches stopping for that 9 minutes of time. And it's always 9 minutes, bizarrely. It's a very precise period of time stop.
I don't think the time stop works in this episode, I agree, but people don't necessarily conk out previously. We saw in Pilot, in the fact that everything goes haywire, Mulder jumps out, he looks at his watch, and the time's just gone.
Yeah.
It's not that people have conked out, it's the fact that you think no time has passed at all, when really a large amount of time has passed.
That's a good point. This is the watches have stopped working for 9 minutes, and in previously, everything was all running fine, but they didn't know.
I should have noticed that previously, but I liked that as a small detail in the last episode, is that Mulder noticed when they found the remains of the people that everybody was missing their wristwatch.
Yes, as part of the cover-up.
I thought that was a nice bit of the cover-up, is that something of that scale you wouldn't notice if you weren't looking for it, that nobody had a wristwatch.
But then if you looked at all the wristwatches and said, hang on, they've all stopped at the exact too early time before the crash happened. Again, we've got a possible malevolent force that can stop the mechanism of a gun working, which we've seen before in Little Green Men, but still, that level of power is incredible that you can do this remotely.
They're not necessarily malevolent, though, because they didn't actually hurt Max.
No.
They were just going to put him back on the plane and everyone would go, like Mulder, with no memory of what happened.
But then that does raise the dramatic weirdness of this episode then, is Max was carrying this part of an alien engine, we assume. We don't know what it is, but basically it has to be for this to make sense.
Yeah.
The aliens levitate him out, take him on board the ship, and apparently just grab it off of his... Well, take out the bag, give him the bag back, and then float him back in again.
Yeah.
Garrett is holding the bag when time stops, and yeah, the aliens have said, well, no, you're coming with us now. You're going to go back on the plane.
He's caused them so much trouble.
He's done nothing though, has he?
His organisation, though.
Do they know that though? It's not clear.
If he's part of the syndicate, yeah, I'd throw him out the plane too.
But again, this is one of these weird ones where this episode almost feels like it was written for season 1 again. This is there's a shadowy government conspiracy, but we don't have the dimensions of it involved. So, given we've had implied communication between the aliens and the syndicate before, and we know you can just talk to the shapeshifters. There's no language barrier there. You can just chat to them in English.
We don't know that the shapeshifters are the same as these, though.
No, I was about to say we are back to, we could have a completely different type of alien. They look an awful lot like the Greys we've seen in other instances.
I would say on this, we don't even know that this is the same sort of alien that took Max, the invisible one, last time.
No, we don't.
Because they are visible when Mulder sees the crashed ship.
Very good point.
But there's nothing to say that they're not always invisible, like the Predator or something like that either. I am going to go on the way this acts is we're looking at the kind of aliens we saw in Deep Throat and EBE, though.
Yes.
Because you have the Deep Throatish ship, you've got the radiation.
Yep. EBE definitely had radiation, and
you've got the Lost Time as well, which is the conduit aliens and the pilot aliens as well.
And EBE, actually.
And EBE. So I think that lot is one clear, distinct kind of alien. It's also the little green men alien because, as you said, we've got the gun not working.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the same aliens that we've been kind of linking to the Black Oil plot.
No.
It's not Space Ghost.
Not shapeshifters.
It's not shapeshifters necessarily. Could be.
Could be.
But not necessarily. And it's possibly not the Fallen Angel one. You know, Max's involvement is muddying the waters. It could be that he's got a different sort of aliens device and they've kind of gunned for it. It doesn't mean that they're these aliens that have been historically taking Max.
Oh, that's an interesting idea, actually, though, just from that. Is there is a possibility there, then, that these are the Fallen Angel aliens, and whatever device Max has got is from one of the other races, and they want their technology. This is an opportunity for them. The other thing they've made me realise is that brilliant white light outside the plane. Well, that's the alien disco. I mean, if you just shoved Max to one side, you'd see the alien doing his little swirly dance thing.
Oh, bless. It's also very clearly not the Fallen Angel UFO, but then again, I'll go on the basis of the military have different kinds of aeroplane. There's nothing to say that the aliens just have this one sort of flying saucer.
No. You know, when you have a standardised UFO design, you stick to it no matter what.
No. I am going to cite for you, and it is a trash reference, Animorphs.
Oh, okay.
You know, classic young adult novel series from the 90s, is they had several different sorts of them. They all had names as well. They had their bug ships. The Blade ship was the one that the Visser, their leader, used. They had a mothership up in space. There were at least 4 or 5 different sorts of distinct UFO with different names and uses that they used.
Oh, okay.
So therefore, you didn't just have the standard, well, the animals with the Yeerks, so your standard Yeerk ship. You had all different sorts of ones, and the aliens of the X-Files could be just as diverse as that.
It's a fair point. I realise you missed a species out.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the gender bend a lot.
Oh, of course.
Though we think they're shapeshifters.
We think they're shapeshifters. They work slightly different to the shapeshifters because they can't just do it.
No, but they had a saucer ship as well, at least implied by the crop circle.
This is the pizza wedge ship, though, we've got this time,
This is the pizza wedge. It's certainly a triangular one. Again, I'm not sure if the special effects went wonky in that one shot of it out in the field, or they've actually just got the scale wrong.
But again, this could just be our little one-man scout ships.
Oh yeah, but the alien is lying down to get into that frame. And he's got Sharon in the back in the glove, in the
Well, to be fair,
trunk.
when you look at some military fighters, they're not that big.
It's true. I will concede that one. I do like that Mulder manages to somehow not get the bends and get away from all those other divers who are coming down right on top of him with searchlights at the bottom of the lake. But he stumbles out the lake. He's got away from everyone. Stumbles out the lake, right in front of that Land Rover, who then arrests him. Like, of all the places to come on shore, you've come on shore next to the Land Rover, in with its lights off.
There is a note about that, and I can only see it because I'm looking at it, is fans noticed that Mulder doesn't seem to particularly run or get away from that Land Rover as well as he does the horses in Tunguska.
Oh,
Or Terma, sorry. But apparently it's because they filmed that at night on the shores of a lake and David Duchovny was on the verge of freezing to death, which is why he runs so kind of painfully and awkwardly, is it was just the conditions he was in and he was so tired and wet and cold that he couldn't run properly.
So realistically, at least, it would have been like that at the time. Their own stupid fault for going diving in that lake. 30 seconds before everyone else had worked out where the UFO would come down.
And we alluded to it last time as well, but I will say it again. Pendrell.
Yes, I was about to say a fan favourite, a low-key member of the supporting cast who is actually quite nice whenever he gets a cameo, and you shot him, he looks like he's fine, and then he just dies off screen.
He has that one happiness moment of his life where Scully tells him that he still owes her a drink and things like that. He's finally got his date.
Yeah, but, I mean, how can you kill him off screen? I mean, it's just... He needed to be killed by, like, a government assassin or something. Something needs to happen, not just...
Or at least, for drama's sake, die in Scully's arms or something like that.
I don't understand why the EMTs got there. He was then patched up and taken away, and then he's just told he died off screen. Who did this? Did the actor not want to be in the X-Files anymore?
To be fair, looking at the first aid perspective as well, is I'm amazed he lasts that long. Because Scully does not treat him. She runs after Garrett first. Garrett has got away. She makes no effort to pursue Garrett after seeing, he's gone through the door. It's impossible to get him now, basically.
He's doing very well
on one leg, yeah. Goes back to Pendrell, holds his face and tells him, look at me, Pendrell, keep breathing and all the rest when he's been shot in the lung. Doesn't make any effort to even put the slightest bit of pressure on that wound, but like in Kaddish, the EMTs apparently are next door and just rush in there anyway. But even when the EMTs arrive, all they do is put a little kind of dressing over his gaping chest wound. We don't try any kind of hemostatic bandage, which exists in the X-Files world because Leonard Betts used one on his mother. So Leonard Betts has proven to be our only competent person at first aid in this series to date.
So what I'm getting from this is that Scully's killed another man.
Well, she doesn't even try the credit card trick, which is famous from movies and actually technically can work, is if somebody's got a piercing wound that has pierced a lung, you can put a credit card over the top of it, and because your body is trying to suck air through that chest wound, the credit card will conform to shape and might temporarily, might not work, but has a chance of just patching it up enough that the person can keep breathing until they can get help.
Yeah.
So we haven't even tried the basic first aid hacks here that still might not have saved him, but, it's better than just holding his face and saying, keep breathing.
Exactly. The other thing that really weirded me out watching this episode, and I'm sure there's possibly an explanation for this in the FBI, but it doesn't read right, is, and you actually just an excuse for this, but why does Pendrell have a gun? Because he's not a field agent. He's a science nerd who sits in labs.
Well, again, my reasoning for this, I'm sorry, listeners, I am so sorry, but is America.
I know.
I don't know what the open carry laws are in Washington, but from our English perspective is Americans carry guns. Yeah. So perhaps he just had a personal gun on himself.
Well, maybe, but it's... I got the impression, and we probably should look this up, is that that's the distinction between special agents and everything else, is that just because you work for the FBI doesn't mean you get a gun.
But if there's an open carry law, he could have a personal firearm.
He could. But I got the impression that it's... Because Scully then says, he's a federal employee or something, when the bartender sort of looks askance at it.
Mm.
So, I don't know, it feels like a weird costuming detail that shouldn't be there, because, again, he's not a field agent. He's gone into the field once to help Scully in Terma.
Yeah.
And that was it. And even then we would sort of point out, Pendrell's here because he's the only named science guy we've got, given he does computers. He's not a biology guy.
I'm also saddened by his death, and rather Scully's reaction to it is, in a series like this, I know we can't have the characters being derailed every time there's a death. You've got to have some kind of distance, but at the end when Mulder asks Scully if she's thinking about Pendrell's death, she's, one, not that upset of it, even though she totally caused this death.
Yeah.
This is all her fault.
Oh, by far.
And 2, she says, oh, I didn't even know his name. Pendrell has helped you out in about 7 other episodes so far. You've specifically gone to him for help, and you've never bothered to learn his first name. Which, for the record, is Sean. But you only find that out in the PlayStation game, which, as notes would have it, we're playing on Patreon at the moment. Hey! But it just feels sad to me, as you've just kind of trivialised the death of another fan favourite character after we murdered Max in the last episode.
Yeah, I mean, I've made that point about Morgan Wong wanted to burn down the series, but this one kind of feels like Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz are trying to do the same thing. The other thing, well, there's a few points as well coming out of this, is not clear how Garrett escaped the one uninjured leg, which is a bit of a weird one. The other is, the kind of, I think they struggle to know what to do with Skinner at times, because the blasé way with which Skinner comes and says, oh yeah, that order for the US Marshal's been countermanded. And you want to say, shouldn't you have told Scully she has a mobile phone, you could have called her and told her this is what's happening? Oh, by the way, someone shot at the guy who was trying to put in protective custody. Should this not be a contributing factor to not let the military have him, given that someone just came into a public bar and tried to shoot him without any probable cause? Skinner, what are you doing? I know you've got to toe the authority line, but... And I think it's a problem the X-Files has had from time to time, is that no one brings up the relevant question because it derails the plot if you do. And you can't ask the obvious questions because otherwise things stop working and everything kind of snarls up and people don't do what they're meant to do anymore. Just frustrating. I did at least like, though, that Mulder observes Garrett's injured leg at the end to know that this guy is the guy who killed Pendrell and tried to kill Frisch. That was the nice detail, at least.
It turns out that Garrett is no better at first aid than anyone else in the series, though.
He's bleeding through his suit. Is your dedication to the job that good that you're just going to wander around on a leg with a gunshot wound? Apparently.
We can't even give him a crutch or something like that.
Oh, just dress the wound so it doesn't bleed when you walk. And, I also get that the X-Files has to do the government are always watching, the government are everywhere, and they know everything. But it's so convenient they keep putting their assassins onto planes without any warning. And, like, Garrett was on the plane Mulder catches before Mulder got on it. That's some precognition stuff. And the fact that... The other thing I don't get, and you can argue this one away, I understand, but this is meant to be some kind of government agency, or they're government aligned, or they've got some level of power given that they can just rush in and do whatever they want and scare people away. So you've got the people who are pursuing Mulder at the airport when he picks up Max's bag. And Max shows his ID and gets taken through the back route to get into the terminal. Do the people following him not also have government IDs to say, we're part of the NSA, we're part of the CIA, we're part of XYZ, let us through the same door?
Apparently not.
Well, they're kind of useless, aren't they? They just get to menace Mulder from the other side of an airport. I don't get it. I get its tension and everything, but the conspiracy seemed kind of lousy at times. So, I made that point about how X-Files two-parters tend to like to do give you slightly too much information in the first half, then desperately claw it back.
Yeah.
This one isn't actually really an example of that, given no one believes the military cover story, and basically the facts don't change. But I do kind of feel they're doing it to Mulder more and more, because it started with Deep Throat, where Mulder gets to see an honest-to-God alien spaceship, or an alien spaceship redesigned by the US military.
Yeah.
And then they wipe his memory. And then in Tunguska, he's infected with the black oil, and turns out he doesn't remember a thing of that. In this one, he literally sits through his second alien abduction of his life, and loses all memory of it. Oh. Mulder's out. That's an interesting out of character moment for Mulder there. Mulder conjectures that Garrett was taken by aliens mid-flight. That's why he doesn't have to think anymore.
Yeah.
Why isn't Mulder rushing off to get hypnotherapy? They're hypnotized to recover that missing memory, what happened in that 9 minutes of time.
You mean it's the one time ever that Mulder hasn't gone straight to regression hypnosis?
Exactly. He did this for Samantha and the childhood abduction. Why has he not rushed off and tried to recover this memory?
Give him time.
He's not going to. You know full well he's not going to. This is his second abduction he's gone through. And he still hasn't got any magic powers. Wow, everyone else on that plane should have a weird ability now, thanks to conduits.
You're sticking to that.
He was so assertive in Conduit that people got weird abilities after being in the presence of abductions. And this happened like literally one time. Do you have anything else for this episode?
Yeah, I have a couple of bits. My first one is just a random bit of trivia, and it could be entirely unintentional, but I think it's a cute reference back if it's true.
Okay.
We didn't mention previously, but Max Fennig was originally hard to identify because he wasn't travelling under his actual name. He was travelling under the pseudonym of Paul Gidney.
Yeah. Oh, wait, that name rings a bell. For some reason. Should it?
It probably won't, based on something you said a couple of episodes ago.
Oh, okay.
So, a couple of episodes ago, we had Never Again.
Yes.
The episode, in fact, you called our episode about it The Moose and Squirrel.
Oh,
because of Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Yeah.
Gidney is a reoccurring character, a moon man who appears on Rocky and Bullwinkle. So you previously had the episode that was the plot of an episode of Rocky and Bullwinkle.
Oh, okay.
And now you've had Max using a Rocky and Bullwinkle pseudonym. I don't know if that's intentional, what they intended, or just a sheer coincidence, but I'd like to think it's intentional just because I like these reoccurring references.
That's cute.
My other point I wanted to make is actually you have dissed this episode a hell of a lot going through. And I would agree with you. I'm going to stick with my usual stance on two-parters is it should be a one-parter.
Absolutely.
I think you could have a lot stronger episode if you cut out a lot of the filler.
Well, and also, I think never depicted the actual abduction event. Like, never illustrated it. Just had it sort of, maybe a brief glimpse of it or something, but not had it as clear-cut as it was.
Yeah,
as cool as it was.
Don't get off my point.
Sorry.
But my point is that the way this episode is framed is like a real-world conspiracy, and that's what I like about it. Because essentially, with the addition of number of planes, you've got a grassy knoll theory. It wasn't that plane, there was a second plane, there was a third shooter. It feels like the building of the way that people kind of tell conspiracies in real life, is the thing I got from it. Is you have it couldn't possibly be one plane, there must be a second. Well, no, how about a third plane? A third plane was coming from over there in that direction, over on that grassy knoll. That sort of feel is the way that conspiracy theorists do talk. And I like the way that was kind of created in this episode through Mulder's evolving theory, and the way that all anyone could ever say was, well, yeah, it could have happened that way, but there's no proof, it's just a theory. Again, like a conspiracy. So unlike most of the heavy-handed X-Files conspiracy, this one to me actually felt like it was structured the way a real-world conspiracy would be structured. Built around a mundane thing as well, like a plane crash, which is a catastrophic event that could easily be grasped by conspiracy theorists. I mean, we saw such things in everything that arrived in the aftermath of 9/11.
Yeah.
Catastrophe of this scale is something that you can easily build a conspiracy into, which is what Mulder kind of shows with his evolving theories throughout the episode.
Very good point. I like that. And with that, you've kind of underscored how lacking that mode of thought is in literally every other episode, isn't it?
Yeah, personally thinking is, I must admit, I'm a Monster of the Week girl, I don't like a lot of the X-Files conspiracy. I like some of these early ones up to this point. Particularly, I think Piper Maru is a really good episode.
Absolutely.
And that arc, as well as Colony and Endgame, I think work really well together. But this is the one for me that feels like a conspiracy.
Yes.
I don't think it's perfect. I have problems with the episode like you do. But it's been one of my favourite conspiracy arcs so far.
That's fair. Well, I was going to say, on the back of that, I'm going to propose something really odd, though, and say there's no point in doing Kim's Conspiracy Corner on this one.
I am not going to do it on the basis of we have learnt nothing new.
Yeah. And you can't even, as we've kind of noted, you can't connect it outwards at all, because none of the usual suspects are around for this. And there's nothing in here that wasn't covered conspiracy-wise than Deep Throat and EBE and Fallen Angel and all the rest of them have done.
I think the best we can do, as we did when we were talking about this just a little while ago, is you can try and link this back and say, all right, this is the same alien that we saw in EBE, in Deep Throat. It's the time stop technology from Pilot. It's probably the alien from Conduit as well. Those ones all seem to have these similar things. Oh, and Little Green Men.
Yeah. Also, weirdly, Nisai.
And Nisai as well, yeah. I think all of those, we could argue, are the same species. We haven't been able to link this species back with the black oil plot yet.
No.
They could be connected, but we just are missing that piece of the puzzle.
I was going to say, the other thing that keeps coming up to me as a thing we connected to, and we can't because we can't be sure of the provenance, is Memoirs of a Cigarette Smoking Man.
Mm.
Given that's the exact same type of alien, but we have no idea if any of that happened.
Yeah, true.
But yes, I mean, I would agree with you. I think it's really odd that it's a great conspiracy episode that has very few lingering connections to the conspiracy. And as you said, it should be one episode. You could compact it down to a very tight episode. And I'm just realizing as well, talking through it again, is that Frisch just vanishes from the plot.
Well, he's been taken by the military.
He has. And
essentially, he's going to turn up dead, isn't he?
He is. But it's so weird. He was such a big part of the first episode, and they kind of just write him out at the start of the second.
Mm.
And I don't feel they had any idea of what to do with Sharon. And all her reveals are weird. Oh, she's not actually Max's sister. Okay.
I did think that was kind of dismissive from Scully, I must admit, is when she reveals that Sharon can't be trusted because she's schizophrenic.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Scully said about Max in Fallen Angel.
Yep.
Is she hit on his schizophrenia diagnosis and said we can't trust anything he says, but he proved to be an abductee.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another missed opportunity is, again, it's why I feel that no one actually bothered to rewatch Fallen Angel, because there is a conversation to be had between Mulder and Scully of Max has shown up again. Do you not remember that he vanished from a warehouse with no viable way out of there? Max was declared dead at the end of Fallen Angel.
Yeah, that's just what they want you to think.
Oh, no, but surely there then is a conversation to be had between Mulder and Scully of, yeah, didn't they tell us this man had died? Because this was back when Scully believed everything the military said without much question.
This is true. I imagine this is why the fact that Mulder wasn't looking for Max being returned, though, if he believed him to be dead.
Yeah, kind of reflects really badly on Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz of just not sitting down and watching Fallen Angel again to check how Max left that episode. They've kind of fastened on to Max was a previous abductee, Mulder and Scully had this connection to him, and no further thought. Given, yeah, the man's been declared dead, but he's managed to come back and pick up his trailer that no one did anything about. And then he got a job in a nuclear facility under an assumed name, and that didn't get flagged up at all.
We have proven in the X-Files that they're really bad at doing background checks.
That's true, actually, yeah, because how Victor Toombs ever got away with it, I don't know. There was another one as well where we all said that, hang on, how does this make any sense?
Leonard Betts.
Leonard Betts, yeah. Someone's not thinking it through, but again, I come back to your anecdote of, how the actor got the job again. And it must have been so frustrating to play a fan favourite character and want to come back and be told you can't come back here to be recognisable. Oh, we'll bring your character back. And apparently pay so little attention to what your character did the first time around.
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that gets me is Fallen Angel was penned at least partially by Howard Gordon and whoever he was writing with at the time, who was still one of the executive producers. And did he not say, wait, this is inconsistent with what I left off with Max? There's some real dysfunction in the writing team, it feels at times. No one is paying attention to each other.
No, you're right. I can see how you feel that way.
I mean, I'm going to tell you, I'm getting into a whole, the X-Files writers are terrible, given I've accused Morgan and Wong of trying to burn the place down on the way out.
You like Darren Morgan.
I do like Darren Morgan, who, again, though, his excuse seems to be, though, he seems to write in little isolations, but then he'll chain his episodes together. He didn't really seem to care about anything around them much, but his episodes link together in a nice kind of chain, don't they?
Yeah.
And it's Queequeg as that running thread through season 3.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I've never realised it before that Max is just terribly used. Well, no, I always knew Max was terrible using these episodes because this was really disappointing because, like a lot of the conspiracies, this came out as a video of the 2 episodes spliced together. And yeah, it's like, oh, Max's story back. Okay, we're going to find out more about Max, and he's dead. Shouldn't have bought this tape. That was a mistake. But again, the fact that it does feel like someone hasn't done research. It's like, kind of like, it feels like a new writer's come in and said, I want to do a sequel to... No, it's like someone's come in and said, we need to write a sequel to Fallen Angel. And they've got like a crib sheet. Max Fennig, former abductee. And no one thought to note down, he doesn't think he's an abductee. Oh, by the way, he was declared dead at the end of that episode. But he has his trailer back, which should be really hard to get hold of if you've been declared dead, because I'm assuming the state would have seized it. And then you could get into this is why his name's changed, because he's had to change his name to work in the world after he's been declared dead, but he still operates under his real name in addition to the pseudonyms.
I'm going to go with, let's just be fair here. In Fallen Angel, the one that tells Mulder that Max is dead is someone within the FBI. It's his superior. It's the Proto Skinner.
Yeah,
that he's working for. So you could go on the basis of this man is on the take and he's just trying to get Mulder off the scent.
Oh, okay.
So there's nothing to say that Max has been officially reported dead. Mulder's just been told that.
Fair point. I would have still liked Max to, at some point in the intervening years to have tried to get hold of Mulder again, given they've been formally introduced and everything.
Yeah.
It just feels slightly odd that this is the first contact they've had in 4 years. That's kind of a minor personal quibble. Do you have anything else for this episode?
No, I think we've touched on everything.
Well, next week we have Synchrony, which has some starting implications for the X-Files universe, and Small Potatoes. A somewhat controversial episode.
I have things to say about Small Potatoes.
Yes. Not one that's aged well, but we'll get into that next week.
Yeah, that one's going to have a content warning.
Yes. In the meantime, if you'd like to get hold of us, our email address is thingsargettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also contact us on social media. On Twitter and Tumblr, we are GetStrange42. On Mastodon, we are at GetStrange42 at universedon.com. And on Facebook, you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. If you're not sick of my voice by now, I also stream whatever I'm playing on the PS5. You can find me on Twitch TV. My username there is Dire Not Dire. That's DYER, not DIRE. I stream Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 PM BST. And also now I'm going to be doing it on Saturday afternoons from 5 PM BST as well. At the moment I'm playing One Piece Odyssey.
We have a Patreon, as Kim alluded to before, which is patreon.com/thingsargettingstrange, where we have a start of our Let's Play of the X-Files game. So this one's going to be scrapped and redone shortly with better sound quality and a more consistent release schedule.
Hooray! Please note there are 3 tiers on our Patreon. Each of them offer different perks, but if you back us at any level, you will have access to the Let's Play and any future specials that will be exclusive to the Patreon.
Which will include the comics, the novels, the video game, and possibly the trading card game, if it turns out to be a sufficiently Yu-Gi-Oh-like experience. We might do it anyway, but I'm really hoping for a Yu-Gi-Oh! Trap card kind of thing.
You just want to keep saying, you just activated my trap card, over and over again.
Well, I'm assuming it's going to be, you've activated my Black or UFO card, or something like that, or you've activated the Smoking Man card. My assassin card, that works.
Live a Vampire.
My Live a Vampire card. We should see if there's an X-Files board game. An actual board game, not just a rebranded version of Ludo or something.
There used to be one that I think was deck buildering.
Ah, okay.
But I'll have to look into it.
So that coming too. Our theme music is Envision by Kevin MacLeod. You can find that on incompetech.com, licensed under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next week, please remember,
trust no one.